I remember that nervous feeling the moment I stepped into Jeff's small kitchen that morning. A year into our marriage, I was still learning how to navigate my role in this new family. And today was a big test, his daughter's 12th birthday. She had lost her mother years ago, and ever since I came into their lives, I had wanted to do something meaningful to get closer to her, to show her that I cared even though I knew I could never replace her mum. Jeff was busy running around, decorating, making sure everything for the party was ready, while I took on what I thought was the most important task, the birthday cake. I had asked him for all the details, her favorite flavors, the icing she liked, even the way she preferred it decorated. I wanted it to be perfect. My heart was full of excitement, but also nerves. I knew that just one small mistake could make all my efforts seem meaningless. Even the trip to the grocery store was stressful. The nearest store had run out of blueberries, the one thing Jeff said she loved most. I stood there, staring at the empty shelves, glancing at my watch. Time was ticking. Guests would arrive soon. I had to decide: run around town to find more, or go ahead without the missing detail. I took a deep breath and told myself, she's still like it. I've done my best. Back home, I began baking. My hands shook slightly, part nerves, part excitement. I mixed the batter, whipped the frosting, layered it carefully, choosing the colors she liked. The smells of butter and vanilla filled the kitchen, comforting but also heightening the tension in my chest. Every motion carried my care. Every stroke of frosting was a silent message. I'm here for you. As I worked, I glanced around the house. Family photos lined the walls, snapshots of birthdays past. I pictured her face when she'd see the cake, the smile that would light up her eyes. That's why I was so meticulous. This wasn't just a cake. It was a message, a gesture, a hope that I could become a meaningful part of her childhood memories. Yet, underneath it all, anxiety lingered. Would Jeff be happy with it? Would she really enjoy it? That missing detail, the blueberries, could it ruin everything? I paused a few times, staring at the cake, taking a deep breath, imagining her delight when she finally saw it. That imagined smile kept me going, layer after layer, stroke after stroke. I had no idea that this one small omission of few missing blueberries would ignite a storm of emotions I had never imagined. A day that should have been joyful, filled with celebration, was about to turn into one of the most challenging moments in my marriage. It was a test of love, patience, and understanding in this newly blended familiar test I hadn't even realized I was about to face. The cake was almost done, but a nagging worry still lingered in my mind. I stared at the smooth, white layers of frosting, carefully spreading every corner, yet my thoughts kept circling. Will Jeff accept this cake without the blueberries? I knew he was meticulous about details, and even the smallest oversight could upset him. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself as I lifted each layer into place. Everything seemed perfect. The frosting color she liked, the flavors she adored, the sweet shape I had carefully crafted. But the absence of blueberries hovered in my mind, an uninvited shadow. I told myself, I've done my best. She'll still love it, and that's what matters most. Time was slipping faster than I realized. Guests would arrive at any moment, and Jeff was still running around with balloons, decorations, and the other party food. The pressure was overwhelming. I had to finish the cake and keep the party on track. My hands shook slightly as I smoothed the final layer of frosting. I had to pause, set the bowl aside, close my eyes, and take a deep breath just to calm myself. In that moment, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was my first time making a birthday cake for Jeff's daughter. I wanted it to be perfect, not just for her, but to show that I truly cared and wanted to be accepted in this family. Every stroke of frosting, every tiny decoration was a silent message. I'm here, I care, and I want you to be happy. I stepped back to look at the cake from across the kitchen. From a distance, it looked beautiful, and I told myself that my love and effort would shine through. Yet a small worry crept in. What if Jeff noticed the missing blueberries? What if she did? I couldn't predict their reactions, and the thought made my chest tighten. I wiped my hands, preparing the remaining decorations: tiny chocolate stars, perfectly aligned birthday candles. Outside the kitchen, the house buzzed softly, Jeff moving around, cheerful music playing, and the occasional giggle from his daughter as she checked the balloons. The mix of warmth and tension made my heart race. Every passing minute amplified my anxiety. Would Jeff notice the missing blueberries? Would she be disappointed? I had poured so much care into this cake, and I reminded myself that it was the love behind it that counted, not perfection. But deep down, I knew that for Jeff, one small detail could change the entire mood. As I imagined her reaction, the smile, the surprise, I took another deep breath, trying to push aside the nerves, telling myself, I've done everything I could. Love matters more than perfection. Yet, a quiet, uneasy feeling still lingered. I knew this cake was more than just food. It was a symbol of care, acceptance, and hope. And I had no idea that a tiny missing detail, the blueberries, was about to trigger an emotional storm, turning what should have been a joyful day into a test of patience, emotions, and love for our newly blended family. The party had started, the house filled with the laughter of guests, soft music playing in the background, and the aroma of food wafting through every corner. I stood in the kitchen, eyes fixed on the cake I had painstakingly prepared all morning, my heart pounding with both excitement and anxiety. I knew Jeff would soon come to check the cake before bringing it out, and the anticipation made my pulse race even faster. Finally, Jeff walked into the kitchen. He stopped in front of the table, his expression serious and tense, pausing to look at the cake. I smiled, trying to hide my nervousness. This is for your daughter's birthday. Take a look, I said. But instead of a smile or a word of praise, his eyes immediately hardened. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, and then he raised his voice. Where are the blueberries? How could you do this? I trusted you to handle everything, and this is what I get. My heart felt like it had stopped. I wanted to explain, but the words caught in my throat. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Jeff, the store was out of blueberries. I did my best to make the cake with her favorite flavors and style, but he didn't listen. His tone became sharper, more rigid. No, you don't get it. This is her birthday. Not a single detail can be missing. I should have just ordered from the bakery from the start. A wave of shock and disbelief washed over me. I stared at the cake on the table, cold sweat running down my back. All the love, effort, and hope I had poured into this cake suddenly felt rejected. I couldn't believe that a few missing blueberries could trigger such anger. The kitchen felt suffocating. The music and laughter of the guests faded into the background, replaced by the weight of tension and shouting. I felt hurt, angry, disappointed, and utterly lost, unsure of how to respond. I glanced around, searching for space to breathe. The chairs, the dishes, the lingering scent of vanilla and butter, all of it became a backdrop for the overwhelming tension. I realized that everything I had done, from carefully layering the frosting to decorating each tiny detail, was being dismissed. My efforts and love seemed to vanish in an instant. Then, in a moment I couldn't have imagined, Jeff grabbed the cake and threw it straight into the trash. I froze, mouth open, heart stopping. "Forget it. I'll just call the bakery," he said, his voice cold and final. A storm of emotions erupted within me. Anger, heartbreak, helplessness. I shouted, my voice raw and heavy with emotion. "You don't understand. I was only trying to do the best for her and for our family." Jeff glared at me, snapping, "Stop yelling." But I couldn't. I felt the urgent need to get out of that kitchen, to find space to breathe, to escape the pressure and hurt overwhelming me. I ran upstairs, changed clothes, and decided to leave the house. Heading to my parents' home. On the way, tears streamed down my face, my heart racing uncontrollably. I felt angry, sad, and betrayed all at once. I wondered, does he really understand me? Or will I always be the outsider in this family? Jeff kept calling and texting, but I didn't answer. I needed time to calm down, to step back from the anger and pain, and to think about what to do next. In that moment, I realized that what should have been a joyful day, just because of one small detail, had turned into an emotional storm, testing the patience, feelings, and limits of both myself and this family. Everything I had prepared, every effort I had put into making the cake for his daughter, was suddenly being challenged in ways I never could have imagined. I sat in my parents' living room, head in my hands, my heart still racing uncontrollably. The anger, disappointment, and pain from earlier were still raw, as if they had never eased. The moments in the kitchen felt like a living nightmare, and now I felt both abandoned and misunderstood. My phone buzzed incessantly. Jeff was calling and texting constantly, each message filled with pressure. "What have you done? Don't you think about my daughter? You're ruining her birthday." I stared at the screen, tense and exhausted. Any explanation at that moment seemed pointless. I set the phone down, took a deep breath, yet the weight in my chest remained heavy. Guilt and self-doubt crept in. Did I overreact? Was leaving a mistake? I only wanted to do what's best for her and the family, so why did it end up like this? But deep down, I knew leaving was necessary. I needed space, time to regain calm, and distance from Jeff's anger and the pressure he inadvertently placed on me. Meanwhile, I imagined Jeff and his daughter celebrating her birthday without the cake I had prepared. She looked at the store-bought cake instead of the one I had carefully made, and I wondered if she could feel the love I had put into it, or if she just noticed the gap I should have filled. The feeling of heartbreak and helplessness overwhelmed me. My parents tried to console me. "Jeff is probably just under a lot of pressure. He only wants everything to be perfect for his daughter." I understood that, yet it didn't ease the hurt. I felt trapped between my love and effort to integrate into this new family and the invisible pressure they unknowingly placed on me. I wanted to be understood, yet I also wanted to preserve myself. That night, I sat silently in my room, listening to the wind outside and distant sounds from the house I had just left, a sense of loneliness enveloping me. I thought about Jeff, about his daughter, about the cake, and the tears I had tried to hold back. I felt both relief and heaviness. Relief that I had protected myself. heaviness that a newly built relationship had been tested so harshly. The notifications kept coming, but I remained silent. I knew any reaction now could make things worse. I needed a plan, a distance long enough to see things clearly. Deep inside, a small resolve began to form. No one could deny the love I had for his daughter, and even if Jeff was angry or disappointed, I would not lose myself. I realized that to be accepted in this family, love alone wouldn't be enough. I would also need patience, wisdom, and clear boundaries. In that quiet moment, I realized the story wasn't over. A conversation would have to happen, misunderstandings would need to be resolved, and I would have to find a way to protect myself while maintaining my relationship with Jeff's daughter. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and told myself, I won't let one small detail ruin everything. I will find a way to make this work for her and for me. The next day, I was still at my parents' house, my mind clouded with thoughts about the incident from the day before. My phone kept buzzing with calls and messages from Jeff. Each one made my heart tighten. Can you just hear me out? Just once, and we can fix this. I stared at the screen, torn between wanting to answer and fearing that my emotions would get the best of me. I knew if I responded immediately, my anger would flare, and everything would only get worse. All morning, I wandered around the room, replaying everything in my mind. The image of Jeff throwing the cake into the trash haunted me, yet deep down I understood that he was under immense pressure. His daughter's birthday, a day so important to him, had to be perfect. I felt both anger and empathy, frustration and compassion. Then my parents suggested, why don't you try writing a long message explaining everything, but without blaming or yelling? Just express your feelings, your care for her, and the difficulties you faced making the cake. I paused, thinking it over. Perhaps this was the only way to break the ice, though a part of me still worried, will Jeff understand? Will his daughter feel my love? Finally, I sat down and typed a long message. I wrote everything my love for his daughter, the time and effort I put into the cake, the missing blueberries, the misunderstanding, the hurt I felt, and my wish to resolve everything calmly and lovingly. I hit send, closing my eyes, feeling both anxious and relieved. A few minutes later, Jeff called. I flinched, but steeling myself, I answered, hello. His voice was low and hesitant. I read your message. I'm sorry for losing my temper yesterday. I was too stressed and didn't consider your feelings. My heart tightened, tears welling up. I gripped the phone. I'm sorry too. I just wanted to do what's best for her. I didn't expect things to get so tense. My voice trembled, raw with fear and emotion. The call continued, and for the first time, both of us opened our hearts, sharing our feelings, slowly untangling misunderstandings. Jeff admitted his anger, and I explained my stress and worries. We laughed, we cried, and gradually felt genuine understanding for each other. After the call, I felt a turning point. For the first time since the conflict, I realized this wasn't the end. The relationship could heal, but it would take time, patience, and trust. I also understood that to be accepted into this family, I needed to show love, patience, and sincerity, while also maintaining boundaries for myself. That afternoon, I decided to go home, carrying a glimmer of hope. I didn't know how Jeff and his daughter would react, but I knew this time I was ready to face them, ready to explain and express my feelings honestly. A mix of nervousness and relief filled me as I approached the door. I stepped inside and saw Jeff and his daughter in the living room. They turned to look at me, surprise on their faces, which softened when I smiled. His daughter ran toward me and hugged me, and in that moment I felt all my effort, love, and hope had not been in vain. And in that instant, I realized that a small turning point, a heartfelt message, an open conversation could change everything. The relationship I thought was shattered now had a chance to be rebuilt, stronger, more understanding, and filled with genuine love. As I stepped into the living room, the atmosphere was quiet yet heavy. Jeff stood there, still tense, but his eyes no longer burned with anger. His daughter stood beside him, watching me with a mix of curiosity and hesitation. My heart raced, a mixture of excitement and fear flooding my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, my voice trembling but firm. "I want to talk to you about yesterday. I don't want things to go on like that." Jeff furrowed his brow, his eyes full of complex emotions. I want to talk to... I'm sorry for losing control. I shouldn't have thrown the cake or hurt you. His voice trembled with regret. Jeff's daughter looked at us, then suddenly spoke up. I just wanted my stepmom to make the cake, but I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want everyone to be upset. Her voice wavered, but her eyes were clear, full of emotion. I bent down and hugged her. "I know you just wanted me to make the cake for you. I did, just missing the blueberries, but I always wanted to make you happy." The room filled with a quiet, emotional stillness, as if all the pressure and misunderstandings were slowly dissolving. I looked at Jeff and saw his eyes soften, and for the first time, we truly faced each other, not hiding our feelings, not being angry, just understanding. I told him about the pressure I felt making the cake, the tight time, picking ingredients, wanting everything to be perfect for his daughter, and the hurt I felt when he became angry. Jeff listened, nodding occasionally, silent but full of empathy. Then Jeff opened up. "I was under too much pressure. I was worried she would be disappointed, and I didn't think about your feelings. I'm sorry." His voice choked with emotion, as if his anger had completely disappeared, leaving only regret and understanding. We sat down together, the three of us, and for the first time after days of tension, a sincere conversation unfolded. His daughter talked about what she liked, what she wanted, and I shared my true feelings. Every word, every glance, every handhold was proof that the misunderstandings were slowly unraveling. The climax in my heart came when Jeff took my hand, looked deeply into my eyes, and said, "We'll do better together, and we won't let small things break this family again. I promise to understand you more, and you will understand me too." Tears streamed down my face, but this time they were tears of happiness and relief. I felt the power of understanding, forgiveness, and love within this small family. A quiet, yet powerful and meaningful moment when all the conflicts, misunderstandings, and pressures of the past seemed to fade away. I hugged his daughter, looked at Jeff, and smiled. For the first time, I felt that I truly belonged here, and that love, patience, and sincerity could overcome any challenge. I whispered to myself, "What's past is past, but we will be stronger because of it." This climax wasn't just about a cake or a ruined birthday. It was about acceptance, understanding, and genuine human connection, and about how a family can stand strong through challenges that once seemed impossible to overcome. After the climax of our confrontation, the atmosphere in the house shifted in a way I hadn't imagined possible. It was warmer, calmer, almost comforting. There was no lingering anger, no oppressive tension, only a quiet understanding that seemed to fill every corner. I watched Jeff's daughter, her small face lit with a smile that felt genuine and free, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and trust. In that moment, I realized that all the conflicts, misunderstandings, and pressures we had endured were merely stepping stones, necessary challenges that had led us here to a fragile but real sense of family. We settled into the living room together, the soft glow of the evening lights wrapping the room in warmth. Our conversation started lightly, with her chattering about the tiny things that brought her joy, how she liked to draw little animals on sticky notes, or how she loved the smell of pancakes in the morning. Jeff joined in, sharing anecdotes from his own childhood, stories I hadn't heard before, funny, awkward, sometimes poignant, and I found myself laughing more freely than I had in months. There was no tension in our words, no hesitation in our smiles. Every glance exchanged, every small gesture, hand resting briefly on a shoulder, a shared laugh over a silly memory, reminded me that relationships can heal when nurtured with patience and sincerity. I felt a wave of relief, a quiet certainty that this home could truly become a place of understanding and care. I thought about the lessons embedded in our struggles. Sometimes, clashes and misunderstandings aren't meant to shatter a relationship. They exist to teach patience, empathy, and resilience. Love, I realized, isn't just a feeling. It's action, consistency, and attention to the smallest details, even when no one is watching. Jeff, too, had changed. He no longer measured my efforts or his daughter's happiness against some impossible standard of perfection. Instead, he proposed small but meaningful guidelines for our household: honest communication, open sharing of emotions, and respecting each other's vulnerabilities. These weren't rules to restrict us. They were frameworks that allowed trust and connection to grow naturally. Slowly, Jeff's daughter began to open up to me in ways I hadn't expected. She started asking questions, sharing little joys, confiding in me about things she hadn't dared to mention before. One evening, she showed me a drawing she had made, her tiny fingers trembling slightly with pride. "I made this for you," she whispered, eyes bright. My heart swelled, and I knelt beside her, praising her effort and laughing at the little imaginative details she had added. Those simple, intimate moments reminded me that love doesn't require perfection, it requires presence, patience, and genuine care. That night, when everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone by the window, gazing at the soft, flickering lights of the neighboring houses. The wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere in the distance, I heard faint laughter carried by the night air. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace, not a stagnant calm, but a living, breathing serenity full of hope and understanding. I reflected on everything we had been through, the arguments, the tears, the sleepless nights, and realized how much they had shaped me. Each challenge had taught me resilience, empathy, and the delicate art of maintaining love, even when circumstances seemed impossible. Family, I thought, isn't about perfection. It's about shared experiences, the quiet dedication of caring for one another, and the willingness to forgive and learn together. Just before I closed my eyes, Jeff's daughter tiptoed into the room, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "Thank you for always being there for me, Mum." My chest filled with warmth and gratitude. Every effort, every tear, every small act of love had been worthwhile in the days that followed. I noticed the subtle changes around the house. Laughter came more easily. Meals were shared with lighter hearts. Jeff and I exchanged smiles that conveyed understanding without words. His daughter began to seek my company, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to share her world with me. It was a quiet, profound transformation, one that reminded me happiness doesn't come from flawless moments, but from sincerity, kindness, and the courage to meet each other halfway. One evening, as we all sat together on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder, Jeff shared a memory from his own childhood, embarrassing, humorous incident that had made him feel small at the time. We laughed together, a genuine, unguarded laughter that filled the room. And as I looked at both of them, I realized that this is what family truly is. Moments stitched together with patience, laughter, and understanding, forming a foundation strong enough to weather any storm in that quiet moment. With the soft hum of the neighborhood outside and the gentle rhythm of our small home, I smiled. I knew that the future would hold challenges, but we had learned to face them together, with love, respect, and protection for one another. A day that had begun with tension and conflict had transformed into a lesson in connection, resilience, and hope, a new chapter for our family, one filled with real love and lasting bonds.